Hi, this is the Kestra track of the Orchestrator course. Here we're going to be showing you how you can deploy your DLT pipelines with Kestra. Let's quickly talk prerequisites. If you haven't already, please make sure you're able to run the code that we showed you in the previous case study. It's the one where we collected data from the GitHub API and stored it in a BigQuery database. You'll also be needing Docker and Docker Compose installed on your device. And that's because in this demo, we'll be running up our Kestra server in a Docker container. Okay, let's take a quick look at our agenda. First, I'll be introducing you to Kestra very quickly. Then we'll get straight to deploying our DLT pipeline in a Kestra server locally. Then I'll introduce you to additional features like dynamic backfilling, incremental loading, and even parallelization. And we'll end it off with deploying our DLT pipeline in a Kestra server. And we'll end it off with deploying our Kestra project to the cloud. So Kestra is a pretty comprehensive orchestrator. If you've seen the spotlight before this video, you'd know that you can use it to develop workflows either through the UI or through code. In our case, we will be using the latter option. We'll be defining our workflows in YAML format. And you'll see that Kestra has a pretty rich UI that allows you to observe and monitor our pipeline runs and troubleshoot if needed. And one thing I find really cool about Kestra is that there's no real need for any data abstraction. We can directly run our Python script in Kestra. We wouldn't have to reconfigure or modify our DLT pipeline. So just some quick terminology that you'll need to know to be able to follow along. Firstly, flow is the term that Kestra uses to define its workflows. That's something we'll be creating in YAML. Next is task. Task is basically a component of a flow. A task essentially represents a certain operation that we need to perform. So in our case, we want to run our pipeline script with our DLT pipeline, so that would count as a task. And trigger, finally, is a term that defines when and how a certain task is performed. So in our case, this is where we'll be providing our scheduling logic. Now, let's talk about local deployment in Kestra. It's actually really straightforward in terms of the steps. Firstly, of course, we have to set up Kestra and spin up a server. Then we'll actually be writing our flow in Kestra. And finally, we'll be executing our flow, which is what's going to run our DLT pipeline. So let's get started.